to my channel. I'm Steve Down. This is my guitar. If you've just joined us, this is the second episode in a series looking at Kenny Burrell's My Favourite Things. We're going to be looking at this throughout the rest of the summer, so up into September. So this is going to be a fairly long haul one, but we're going to really dive deep on this one and give you some really important information about how to play over jazz standards and some interesting stuff that you can use in your own explorations of improvisation. If you want an introduction to the tune, go and look at the last episode. In the last episode, we looked at the head in a chord melody arrangement. This week, we're going to be learning the first A section. Before we dive into the lesson, I just want to say a big thanks to my patrons because you make all of this possible. So yeah, big thanks to John and Dave who joined us this week, just looking at my phone there. If you haven't already checked it out, Patreon is a great place where you can support this channel and aid me in making more lessons like this in the future. Over on the Patreon channel, you're going to get the transcription, the backing track, which I've created myself with Josh, Joe, and Jamie, who are playing keys, bass, and drums, respectively there. And also you'll get all of the chord scale exercise packs, anything that you basically see on the screen here. You're also going to get some extras. This series, we're going to be doing a Q&A halfway through, which will only be available to patrons. So if you want to get in on that Q&A, which will be on Zoom, and I'm going to answer some of your questions and give you some more extra juicy information on how to play over this standard and just generally how to play over other standards. So if you want to get that, then head over to this link here and sign up. If you just want to do a one-off and you don't want to sign up to anything on a subscription, then there is a Buy Me a Coffee link below. And as always, hit the subscribe button anyway and hit the like button if you like it. And don't forget to leave a comment below as well. I really like it when people say hey or ask questions, and even if you challenge me as well, because you know, I'm committed to being a lifelong student anyway myself, so I'm always on the lookout for new information and I don't profess to know everything. Let's dive into the tune itself. We're going to take a look at the first A section this week. So this tune starts off by going through a little riff which Kenny's added to this. We don't see this in the original or in John Coltrane's similar version from '61. It's kind of on the keys. Kenny doesn't actually play it, but on the keys it's kind of like this. It's like an E minor 7 going to an A with an E in the bass, and then with a B minor with an E in the bass as well, and then back to the A again. So if you want to play it on guitar, like this. Going to a B7 at the end, although Josh I think is playing a B7 sharp 11 at the end there, which kind of ties in with what I played at the end of the beginning, or I should say what Kenny played at the end of the beginning passage. Going further into that, if we just take a quick look at the harmony of the piece, the whole tune is in E minor, and the majority of the chords are all taken from a harmonized E natural minor scale. Now remember, E natural minor is the relative minor of G major, so they share the same key signature, one accidental F sharp. So this is the E natural minor scale. And then if we make quadrats, which is basically where you take a first, third, fifth, and seventh for each note. So for example, for the first one, you're going to take E, G, B, and D. So you can see you skip one, take one, skip one, take one, skip one, take one. And you get the first, third, fifth, and seventh for each chord. If you do that for each chord, then you get this. So you can see we've got E minor 7, F sharp half diminished or F sharp minor major 7, G major 7, A minor 7, B minor 7, C major 7, D7, and then back to E minor 7 again. Every single chord in there used in this piece, apart from the B minor 7. So the place where we get a type of B chord is right towards the end of the A section, where we've got a minor 2, 5, 1 in E minor, although it actually goes to E major, but we'll look at that in a second. We've got a minor 2, 5, an F sharp minor 7 flat 5, or an F sharp half diminished as it's otherwise known, and then we see a B7. Okay, now, if you remember back just a second ago, I said that it would be a B minor because that's the quadad that we get when we harmonize the E natural minor scale. Here we've got a B7, so we've got a major third rather than a minor third in the chord. So how does that figure? Where's he got that from? Obviously, it's not Kenny that's doing this. It's Rodgers and Hammerstein. So the B7 is basically a chord that is borrowed from the E harmonic minor scale. This is the E harmonic minor scale. And if we harmonize the E harmonic minor scale into quadads, taking the first, third, fifth, and seventh for each note of the scale, then we get this. So we've got an E minor major 7 chord. An E minor major 7 chord is basically an E minor 7 chord, but you've added in a major 7 instead of the minor 7. So instead of a D, we've got a D sharp, which is what we've got in the scale. Okay. And then we've got after that the F sharp half diminished or F sharp minor 7 flat 5 going on to G major 7 sharp 5. Because obviously we've got that D sharp rather than a D, so it becomes a sharp 5. Then going up to A minor 7, okay, and then going to a B7. There is our chord that we're borrowing, and then C major 7, and then a D sharp diminished, and then back to our E minor major 7 there. So that's the quadads from the E harmonic minor scale. And so obviously we've borrowed the B7 there. Now the reason why we're using a B7 rather than a B minor is because it just draws us together towards the home. Okay, as I said a second ago, he actually goes to a major, but still going to a major, the dominant chord pulls us. It's more tense than a minor 7 chord. Okay, it's far more tense than a minor 7 chord, and it pulls us into the minor chord. It creates tension and pulls us into that one chord a bit better than a minor 7 chord would. So that's why we see that B7 there. So this is all really useful information when it comes to doing your solo over the top of this. So just digest this information, make sure that you know that all of the chords are diatonic, and we've used almost every single note from the scale of E natural minor, but we've borrowed the dominant chord, the B7, from the E harmonic minor scale. So obviously when you're going to be soloing over a B7 chord, you're going to be using the E harmonic minor scale instead of the E natural minor scale, as well as your B7 arpeggio and any altered scales that you might want to use over the top of this as well. Some of you keen ears that have been following along so far in the last episode and in this episode, and if you've done any research so far and listened to the tune, you'll notice that the original is in 3/4. The original, My Favourite Things, sounds like this. So the original and also John Coltrane's version is in 3/4. This version is in 4/4. So it sounds like this. Now, this this is a really clever thing that Kenny's done, and it just kind of speaks to Kenny's kind of groove. He likes to make things really, really groove filled. If you listen to any of his tunes, if you go back to my series on Midnight Blue and that album, you'll hear that a lot of Kenny's stuff is very groove based, which is brilliant. But here he's got a really great groove, and he's put it in 4/4 just to make it a bit different. So how do we go about putting our tune into 4/4? So you'll see that the thing that Kenny's done to convert it from 3/4 to 4/4 is to make it syncopated, more like this. That's not exactly what Kenny's played, but it's the kind of approach that he's taking. And the other thing that he's doing is that in some cases, he's playing the beginning of the bar as a long note, and then the end of the bar, he's squeezing in the rest of the notes. So like that there. So that kind of gives him something to play in that extra beat of the bar. There are many jazz standards that are in 3/4. You've got Alice in Wonderland, Black Narcissus, Bluesette. There's lots and lots of tunes that are in 3/4 that are great, great tunes. And you can convert any of them into 4/4. Some are slightly more easier than others. Here's an example of a great jazz standard in 3/4 originally. It's called Someday My Prince Will Come. The best version of this, I think, is Miles Davis's version from the album of the same name. But this tune sounds great in 3/4. This is how it sounds in 3/4. And what I've done is I've used those two techniques, syncopation and then also playing long notes at the beginning of the bar and then shoving the other notes towards the end of the bar to actually fill in the extra beat that we've gained from being in 4/4. Why don't you try this at home? Take maybe a standard like Alice in Wonderland, put it into 4/4 rather than 3/4. Maybe you could even put it into a shuffle and see how it sounds. Some tunes won't convert easily or sound good, so you might just want to leave those. But others, like Someday My Prince Will Come, will sound great. So the last thing I want to talk about here is this little link that he plays towards the end. So the thing I want to talk about here is the fact that this section here is very clearly an improvisation. Kenny probably wouldn't have come up with this beforehand. They would have probably just known that they were going to go back into that little groove that happens right at the top of the tune where the band comes in. And here he's just improvising over the top of it. But what he uses is a great technique which is really good for any improvising, which is a question and answer routine, where you state a question. So... okay, and that's a question and answer in itself, actually, because you've got the first part and then the second part. But if we look macro, that's a question in itself. And then there's a little bit of space, and then he provides an answer, which is slightly different. So it's starting in a different place in the bar. And then at the end of it, he provides a really long phrase which takes into account everything that's kind of come before and adds some new material. And very clearly resolves at the end. So the new material that's added there is the blues scale. So it's a really, really good technique to use if you're going to choose to improvise over this section rather than play what Kenny played. And I would really encourage you to do as much improvising as possible. So it would be great when you get the backing track, when you sign up to Patreon, to improvise over this section rather than trying to play exactly what Kenny played every single time. So just some takeaways from this first A section. The first thing is to make sure that you know your E natural minor scale and also your E harmonic minor scale, because that's where we've borrowed that dominant chord from. If we use the dominant chord from the E natural minor scale, it would be a minor 7 and wouldn't pull us sufficiently enough to resolve back to the 1. It sounds too safe. So that's why we've got a dominant chord there going back to the 1 minor. And it's useful to know this information because we need that E harmonic minor scale for improvising when we hit that chord. The other thing to take away from this is to try moving a 3/4 tune into 4/4. And there's 2 ways that you can do that. You can add a groove to it, and you can syncopate the melody. And then you can also play longer notes at the beginning of the bar and then shove the remaining notes towards the end of the bar to fill in that extra beat that we've acquired. And then the final thing from this week is basically to improvise using question and answer technique at the link section that Kenny's added in. So I hope you enjoyed this and you got something out of it. Next week we're going to be looking at the second A section and then also moving forward into the B section as well. Remember that if you want to get the transcription and any of the chords, scales and exercises that you've seen on the screen here, then head over to Patreon. There you'll also get a backing track and you'll also get access to the Q&A that I'm going to do halfway through this course. So happy practicing and I'll see you next week.